From JBS Studios in Greater New York, this is the JBS News Update with Teisha Bader.
I'm Teisha Bader with the JBS News Update for Wednesday, January the 17th, 2024. As fierce battles continue in Gaza between Israeli troops and Hamas terrorists, the IDF today announced several more casualties. They are 32-year-old Master Sergeant in Reserve Zachariah Pesach Haber, 34-year-old Sergeant Major in Reserve Yair Katz, and 21-year-old Staff Sergeant Oria Ayimalk Goshen. The IDF also announced that 26-year-old Master Sergeant in Reserve Anwar Serhan was killed in a military-related car accident while on duty, reportedly in the West Bank. IDF troops eliminated a number of Hamas terrorists in Gaza, including, the IDF said today, a Hamas operative who was responsible for investigating suspects of espionage against the terror group. Also destroying terrorist infrastructure of Hamas, including a terror tunnel of over 1,000 feet long, used, the IDF said, by the organization's terrorists to transport terrorists between the north and the south of the Gaza Strip. Israeli troops also continue to defend the northern border with Lebanon, hitting Hezbollah terrorist infrastructures and military buildings and responding to threats. And the Times of Israel reports that IDF troops prevented a terror attack in the West Bank today, taking out a terror cell planning an attack in Israel imminently, it said, in a drone strike in the Balata refugee camp. Kibbutz Be'eri, one of the kibbutzim ravaged during the October 7th Hamas massacre, said that 2 hostages held by Hamas have been murdered in captivity. They are 53-year-old Yossi Sharabi and 38-year-old Itai Sversky. Medicine for the hostages still being held by Hamas in Gaza for now 103 days is said to be en route to them. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's office said last night that as per the Prime Minister's instructions and pursuant to the director of the Mossad's agreement with Qatar on providing medicines to the Israeli hostages, 2 Qatari Air Force planes flew to Egypt with medicines purchased in France, compiled according to the medical needs of the hostages. The medications reportedly arrived in Egypt this afternoon and are set to be transferred by Qatari representatives to Gaza. This is the first agreement reached with Hamas since November, when we saw a week-long ceasefire and the return of some of the hostages. The agreement to send the medicine for the hostages includes the delivery of thousands of boxes of humanitarian aid to Gaza. The chairs of the U.S. Senate Foreign Relations Committee, Senator Ben Cardin and Senator Chuck Schumer, led a bipartisan press conference this afternoon with American and Israeli families of hostages, marking the devastating milestone of 100 days of captivity, which was reached on Sunday, continuing to call for the safe and immediate return of their loved ones.
I applaud the bipartisan efforts that we're seeing today and the efforts of the Biden administration to date, but we need to do more. 103 days is 103 days too many, and we are running out of time. The hostages are running out of time.
The U.S. State Department today announced the designation of the Houthis as a specially designated global terrorist group, effective 30 days from today, citing the Yemeni rebels having launched unprecedented attacks against international maritime vessels in the Red Sea and the Gulf of Aden, which began soon after the October 7th Hamas massacre, targeting shipping vessels the Houthis deemed linked to Israel. The U.S. Senate yesterday rejected a resolution conditioning aid to Israel. The resolution, spearheaded by Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders, called for the State Department to freeze all aid to Israel unless the State Department reported on whether Israel committed human rights violations in its battle against Hamas in Gaza. The vote to table the resolution was passed 72-11. Taking a look now at our programming for tonight on JBS for Wednesday, January the 17th. At 7, Shahar Azani speaks to David Harris about the current situation in Israel and Gaza. At 7:30, David Harris speaks with Egyptian author and activist Dalia Ziada about her courageous, outspoken support for Israel. At 8, activist Muriel Fox, author Brittney Cooper, and journalist Rebecca Traister explore the triumphs and shortcomings of Betty Friedan's 1963 bestseller, The Feminine Mystique, in the context of today's feminism. At 9, it's David Dalen on L'chaim. At 10, actor, producer, and director Tracy Ellis Ross talks about identity at the ADL Never Is Now conference. And coming up next, it's Thinking Out Loud. And that's the JBS News Update for Wednesday, January the 17th, 2024. I'm Teisha Bader. Am Yisrael Chai.